Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I sent you the link, but
Uh-oh. Somebody calling you?
no. That's I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Let me turn that off.
Welcome to the Jimmy Doane Show. Ladies and gentlemen, today is the 11th of 7, or the 7th of 11.
Yeah. 7th of November, 2018.
That's right, it's the day after the election.
Day after the election, which actually is still not over yet.
No, of course not. It won't be over for quite some time.
They said it could be at least Saturday, if not longer.
Oh, shoot. I mean, don't some jurisdictions take like a month to do? I mean, especially if there's a recount or anything.
Well, yeah. Again, that's going to be kind of interesting. They have some deadlines on a lot of that stuff, but the here in
Before we get into it,
yeah.
And this is the show, y'all. We stream twice a week at 4 o'clock on this channel on Facebook these days. So please join us. You can add comments if you like, which people can see. You can share it any way you like. And so hopefully we'll have a nice clean stream once again today. Looking good so far. So I'm Counselor Curtis, and of course this is Jimmy Doane.
Jimmy Doane Show.
And we are live.
And we're live, yes.
So, the election happened. It takes a couple seconds.
Okay. Scare me.
That's the other program. So
Okay, good. Okay, good.
So the election happened.
The election happened, and it wasn't all that exciting. It was, for some people it was, I suppose. There was a couple of upsets. The House, Nancy Pelosi must be doing a little dance, and because it looks like she's probably going to be the House leader again. Mm-hmm. But all is not the best news in the world for her, because now the House is going to get the blame for a lot of things, and if they think that they're going to get a lot of stuff through.
It's Gridlock City here.
It's Gridlock City, right?
Which I think is great.
No, I know. Ron Paul said that was. Hey, I was listening to him today, and he said, "Yeah, no problem with that."
It's kind of the best of all worlds from my perspective, if you think about it, because the Democrats win the House, right? So now it's split Congress, so it's gridlock for 2 years. Mm-hmm. They're not going to agree to anything.
Nope.
I doubt. I mean, unless it's just super bipartisan, or very well supported. I mean, from my perspective, the Congress should have supermajority voting for a lot of things anyway.
Right.
And so this is kind of like that. This requires such a consensus among the people to get anything through that really, I don't think anything too ugly is going to get through. And also, I think this is an inoculation against a tidal wave at the next election. That is, if the Democrats hadn't gotten anything, they would have been really pissed off right now.
Yeah.
And then anything that happens between now and the election in 2 years would all be Trump's fault for sure. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And but as it is, there's going to be a little shared blame. And there won't be a complete backlash, or at least there shouldn't be, which would have, from my perspective, reversed things. I don't want to see all the Republicans I don't want to see consolidation among all the houses and the executive at any point.
Right. Well, basically what happened was there were a number of governorships that flipped. And I don't know what the ratio is now. It's I think it's 28 to 22 or something. Whatever it adds up to 52. Good math, George. Jimmy.
Yeah,
so anyway,
math guy.
Yeah, right, math guy. Yeah. At any rate, there were some interesting races. I thought I went to bed before they were all done. But here in Florida, it looks like we're gonna have a recount. Between.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In Florida.
I thought DeSantis won. Is that what you're talking about, or different?
I know. I'm talking about the Senate race.
Oh, okay. Rick Scott.
Yeah. Apparently, there is in Florida we have an automatic recount if the margin is less than 0.5%, mm-hmm. and apparently it is less than that between Bill Nelson and Rick Scott. So it looks like there's going to be a recount, and I don't know, but right now Scott is ahead by 5 or 10 or 15, 20,000 votes, whatever it is. I don't know how that's all going to go.
It's quite remarkable that it's so. I guess a lot of races aren't. I guess a lot of races.
No, well, what was interesting, of course, was I went through here in Alachua County, up here in Gainesville area, and when you looked at the map, it was kind of funny. When you looked at the map they were showing on some of the TV stations last night, you see Alachua County is this blue dot in a field of red.
Right. The blue-red maps. Yeah,
Yeah.
that shows us exactly where we are.
Yeah, exactly. And so I went through, just for laughs, I went through the actual voting, the numbers that voted here in Alachua County, and it was all blue. I mean, everything that they did was all blue. And of course, what we also did was to pass a couple of things that I voted against, but they were all really happy. We have a new tax on sales tax for schools. So,
Oh, really? One of my
for the
education
children.
friends was upset. She said education got.
No, they got it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got it in spades. I mean, it was like over 60% or something. Yeah, that was one of them.
Well, you know, it has to be over 60%.
No, that's for constitutional amendments.
Right. Was it a referendum?
This referendum was for a local. This was for this was a local tax. This wasn't a constitutional amendment. All the constitutional amendments, though, almost all of them did get over 60%. And in order to take effect on the Constitution.
Yeah, I saw. From my perspective, I think. From my perspective, the biggest sea change in Florida that happened in the election was Amendment 4.
Which was
the authorization of convicted felons to vote.
that was a big deal.
Huge.
Yeah,
Do you know how many people in Florida were disenfranchised?
millions.
Oh yeah, like 1.5 million.
Yeah, it was, and they were almost, and 60% of them were of color.
I'm shocked it's not higher than that.
Well, that was what I think they said, over 60%.
Well, I guess when you compare that to their percentage in the community,
Right.
it's widely disparate.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's going to be. Voting is going to be different in Florida.
Yeah.
That's gonna change Florida into a blue state, I think.
Well, it could very well be. I mean, you saw.
I mean, I'm a little bit.
Well, what was interesting when you saw the difference between Gillum and DeSantis, which was razor thin, and I just, when I think about when you look at the platforms and so forth and what's happened, I'm just astounded and amazed and stunned by the amount of votes that Gillum got. I just, what were people thinking? I mean, he's a give it all away guy. I mean, he was promising free stuff for everybody. In Florida, I mean, I realize we've got an $80 billion budget in Florida, but still, there's only so much money. And one thing that Florida does have, and most states do, is a balanced budget amendment. I mean, the fact is, you have to balance the budget every year.
Right.
And
well, look, to me there were a couple of pretty stark explanations for that.
Really?
Yeah. First of all, it's a binary choice, so
Right.
there's no ranked voting or anything. So
Right. No ranked voting.
So it's one or the other for most people.
yeah.
DeSantis cuddled up to Donald. I mean,
yeah. Oh, totally.
Not like just
Oh, no.
embraced him. I mean,
No,
they
no.
spooned and hung
no
out.
question about it, no.
So anybody who doesn't like Donald was going to go with
Gillum.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the fact is that, and we've seen this in some other races too, where they were accusing some of the Democrats of being Nancy Pelosi's little puppet.
Right.
And DeSantis is going to be Donald's puppet.
Well, I mean, as
Pretty
a
much.
governor, you can do a lot of stuff. You can do what the heck you want. You
That's
actually have
true.
more
That's
power
true. That's
as
true.
a governor a lot of times than as a president.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can just invoke all kinds of natural law. Just, we need it for police protection.
Well,
for
the other
fire."
thing that happened is that the Republicans still maintain control of the legislature here in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And that's going to be a big deal. Why? Because the governor was going to be, I'm guessing it's going to be Republican, unless there's some fluke, and the legislature, and they get to redraw the legislature lines in 2020 or whenever, after the census is
after
out.
the census.
So that will desperately affect the distribution of the seats.
Well, as much as that is sort of distasteful to me, we have had the weirdest drawn legislative districts in this state. Like you've talked about in the past, we've got one that looks like a praying mantis was smashed onto a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the best description of the shape you could possibly come up with. And if you think that's cohesion, no, it's not. But there's an argument the other way. And that's how they got it that way, which is you group people who are likes of birds of a feather together, and then you let them vote however they. The voting thing in general, of course, as we've talked about, is a bit of a scam. I mean, that this is set up as our only method of change, or the only way that we can do things, and we have quite narrow parameters, within that as well. But
well, it's going to be there's going to be some changes here in Florida, and also there were some other races that were kind of interesting. I saw where what's her name, Cortez or whatever. Mm-hmm. She won. She is going to be 29, the youngest ever in the House of Representatives.
Well, we knew that. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Was the other reason why Gillum was a strong candidate was, of course, because he's black, and a lot of people wanted him to be the first black
governor.
Right, and the left has especially the base has a big interest or push or for identity politics. Their concept is the diversity in and of itself is valuable.
Right.
It's forget about the ideas or whatever else. Just the fact that he's of a different ilk than ever before.
He's a diversifier.
He's the diversity candidate.
Yeah, diversity candidate.
So, and also I had several friends. I had friends who voted for him on the single purpose, on the single reason thing. Like, for example, he supports full legalization of marijuana.
Okay.
So I had friends who were just like, "Hey, man, I'm in for him." Yeah, exactly. So and
single issue, right?
And I'm sure that there could be people who are abortion type. Not that has anything to do with the states, but it could. I mean, if Roe v. Wade was overturned, it could be passed down to the states in a way that could make that decision turn at the state level. So, there were single issue voters.
I did not make a list of the questionable returns and so forth, but I do think it was interesting that Donald, claimed victory because of the Senate.
Yeah,
and that is going to be quite, for him, that'll be quite important if in case Breyer or Ginsburg don't make it.
Gives him so much power.
Yeah, because now he can tell Susan Collins and go ahead and vote against me.
Right,
that's fine by me. He won't have to kowtow to the quote moderates.
Right. Well,
and this also happens with the voluminous number of lower court judges that the Senate appoints or confirms. Mm-hmm. And now, as I say,
it's going to be open season.
It's going to be open season, right? It just will be. So interesting, for generations to come, that kind of thing.
One other thing about the election, crap, I lost it there. All right, next, move on.
Well, one other thing about the election that was that's kind of a side point was that Michael Bloomberg, he aired $5 million worth of ads just before the midterm elections to try and get the Dems through there. I don't think he succeeded. So he's in a couple of places in California we talked about, but the ads, as it says, they were 2-minute ads and they appeared during some primetime stuff. But as somebody once said, well, they're mostly about him. and it's interesting because. One of the things that I did talk about just about elections here. Hold on a second. Let me find this.
While you're saying that, I'll say Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, of course, was in a heavily left-leaning district.
Oh yeah,
we knew
sure.
She was going to win once she won the primary.
That was an automatic, and she won it rather handily. I mean,
she crushed him.
So, but what some wags have said is that she's going to be the new face of who was it that said Louis Black, comedian, when they asked him about Obama winning the election, and what are you going to still be funny? Because he used to say, well, what I used to do was just pick up the newspaper and when I would do a show and read what George Bush said today, and ha ha ha, and we all went home. I got paid. Well, apparently there are a lot of people thinking that she's going to be kind of the same way. That some of her stuff's going to be off the wall, and they're going to have a kind of a Maxine.
Oh well, certainly the right-leaning comedians, are
of which they're not
licking their lips. Yeah, they're getting ready. It'll be interesting to see because with the majority, the way that it is, not incredibly heavy on one side.
Right.
They'll try to court her, and it'll be interesting to see if they're able to draw her back towards the center, or if she'll stake out a ground on the far left.
Well, I think she's in for a big surprise when she gets there. She's 29 years old, and she's up against Nancy Pelosi, who's 80 and has been there forever.
40 years of these kinds
That's
of battles.
right. And so, I mean, and she
Longer than the girl's been
oh
alive.
longer than she's been alive. That's right.
Yeah.
She was in diapers.
And she's going to get her butt handed to her several times.
She is going to be the consummate backbencher.
I would think. But and especially, like I said, because of the slim majority. If they had 100-person majority or something, man, she could.
Well, it will be interesting to see what committee she's on.
Right.
And of course the committee.
Lending.
Yeah, right. The book the condiment committee for
right. Exactly.
This tableware committee. Okay, but she. There's going to be you do understand that all the committee heads now and subcommittee heads all change.
Yeah, well, in the House.
Yeah, in the House, right. They all change. And so now all of those committees have at least a one vote margin. I think they try and split it sort of evenly, but they most always have they'll have 10 Republicans and 11 Democrats now, for instance, with the chairman being a Democrat.
Oh, hey, Dan.
Is Dan here? Good deal. So anyway, this is one of the things I did notice, just to finish off a little bit about the election. Tuesday's election sounded the starting gun for a long, crowded, expensive, and no doubt dramatic race for the presidency.
Oh, the starting gun.
The starting gun. I mean, here it is today. I'm sorry, Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
The day after. I mean, we've got 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't know.
By today's nightly news, there will be a new announcement. There will be Beto is in or whatever.
Yes, yeah, Beto. The new whatever it was. Democrats riding a wave of momentum from their gains in the U.S. House of Representatives.
From their mandate in the House.
And mandate in the House enter the presidential cycle without a clear front runner for the first time since 2004. Nobody's out front, okay? More than 24 possible contenders, including former Vice President Joe Biden and a gaggle of senators, governors, mayors, and business leaders, have been jockeying for months to line up donors and evaluate their shot at the party's nomination. Now, one of the things that is always kind of interesting is that they can tend to self-destruct. As it goes on, and they're going to have to do, maybe not right away, but sometime down the pike, they're going to have to start doing negative ads against some of the other people. And I mean, if you've got, it reminds me of when Bill Clinton first started running. There was like 7 or 8 people in the race.
Yeah, and he was late. He started late.
Oh, nobody knew who Bill Clinton was until January or February before the election in November. Nobody. And so now we're going to be assaulted with the campaign rhetoric starting tomorrow or maybe tonight. I don't know. Will be seen.
Well, I think we could pick out a half a dozen of the people who are definitely going to run unless something happens between now and then. I mean, it's going to be Elizabeth Warren. It's going to be Joe Biden. It's going to be Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, really?
Oh yeah. She's Cory Booker. And
Beto.
Yeah. And yeah, there's 5 right there, and then they got to throw somebody in from the old guard, I would think, but I don't know. Democrats usually go with the new person.
We've seen that before. With Jimmy Carter, for instance, was an unknown.
You go back through the decades, and I've done this before, and the Democrats have picked as almost always a relative unknown, the new rock star, the up-and-comer, the new kid on the block, that kind of stuff. Whereas the Republicans go with the last
goal.
Right, it's the guy who didn't win last time and ran the time before that too. And this is his 3rd time or 4th time running, and it's got 20 years because the only reason governorship or both houses or
Well, the other thing, remember now, the Democrats to counteract that, of course, was Hillary was the one who was anointed.
Well, yeah,
in this particular one.
That was super rare, and the truth be told, they would have gone with Bernie if they could have.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, yeah, he's talking about running again.
Yeah, I've heard that he won't. I mean, he made such a great run last time. I don't know if he could do any better than that. I mean, without the
DNC,
right? Exactly.
What
can you do?
Yeah.
I mean, he did everything. He had everything. He was right up until a couple of 3 months before. And then he just handed it all over to the Democrats.
Well, he sure did too. I mean, when he refused to say, that was the big change was when he refused to say anything about her emails.
Oh,
in one of the debates. Well, they said in one of the debates, they started. Somebody asked a question about the emails, and he said, "We're not here to talk about that." Well, that was a big deal.
We were.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
Newsflash.
Well, you don't get to set the agenda like that.
No, I know not. Well, the debates were kind of interesting anyway.
Well, they're always.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. I got a couple of other items here that of note. A San Diego jury sided against the author of the best-selling PH Miracle books this week, ordering him to pay $105 million to a cancer patient who said the author held himself out as a doctor and counseled her to forego traditional medical treatment. The large award, more than double what the woman had sought, comes roughly 16 months after the criminal case ended with the author, Robert Oldham Young, going to jail for a few months for practicing medicine without a license. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is let's see, yeah. On Friday, the guy who has to pay all this money, good luck, called The Judgment of Fraud, has written several books, including the best-selling PH Miracle Balance Your Diet, Reclaim Your Health, first published in 2002. His flagship book that has been translated into several languages. Young's work, the treatments provided at his Valley Center Ranch, were based on the theory that acidity in the body was the cause of disease and alkaline diet was the answer. In 2015, cancer patient Doane sued Young in San Diego Superior Court alleging negligence and fraud. She had been advised to forego her chemotherapy and traditional treatment and instead go with the treatment in line with his alkaline theories. Civil trial lasted 7 days, deliberations lasting half a day, and with a $105 million award includes $90 million for pain and suffering and $15 million for punitive damages. Now, two things. Practicing medicine without a license. Now, I don't know about you, but there's not a Saturday morning that doesn't go by here where the medicine touts, get on the radio here for their 30 or 40-minute show, and they will sell you, and Mrs. Jimmy is one of them. This guy has a whole line of medicines.
Miracle food,
right? I mean, seriously,
vitamins.
all of them. And I mean, there are just, I won't call them snake oil salesmen, but the fact is, and I'm not saying this stuff doesn't work, but the fact is that they're not doctors, and nobody, although I will say this, the one guy that does tout his stuff, interesting, Dr. Lang here locally is an eye doctor, I think. But he has vitamins that you take for your eyes.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's at least more specific.
And I mean, Mrs. Jimmy is scarfing them up, and they're not cheap. But and of course that's what's his name did. The guy who they kicked off, Alex Jones. They kicked off Twitter and every place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, his big money maker was the stuff that his supplements that he sold.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah, no, that's where he sold. That's where he made his money. You go to his store. Oh God, yes. Okay. He had I don't know 100 different supplements that he sold. Now all of this stuff, as you know, I mean, you can go down here to the gem store, whatever it is down here on the corner, and there's nothing in there that's FDA approved, not a single thing, which is fine. But vitamin B12 special selection, blah blah blah, shark cartilage and everything else. But is this practicing medicine without a license? And of course, I guess somebody said that this was because she's in stage 4 cancer now because she refused. It reminds me a little bit of It reminds me a little bit of Steve McQueen. He had cancer, and he decided that this was the big rage back before he died was not avocado, but not peach pits, but they were a pit from a fruit that was ground up or something, and that was supposed to cure your cancer. He went to Mexico to get it all done and everything. He died from the cancer.
And then he died.
Yeah.
Right.
And even Steve Jobs, they had told him, you need to get on the line here. Well, he went over to India or Tibet or something to do the natural business, and it went too far, and he died. Point is, when you're talking about practicing medicine without a license, so you're selling these supplements, and I haven't read the transcript. I don't know what the attorneys did, but she was asking for half this,
right? And
somehow the attorney got double that.
Well, okay, and I can tell you how they got double.
Okay,
and to me, this is just an example of three really horrible systems in conjunction.
Okay.
Here. Okay.
They come together.
They come together in this poignant story. But here's the way that it is. First of all, you're absolutely right. We have people, ever since the invention of molecular biology, we've had people studying what these things do. Biochemistry is incredibly important. The human body is incredibly important and complicated. There's going to be, we're going to see this for decades to come. We've heard little focuses on little parts. Oh, cholesterol's good. No, it's bad. No, there's good and bad cholesterol. It's like, it's all over the place. Okay, mm-hmm. So what do? Well, if you're a responsible adult and your life is on the line, you get more than one opinion, okay? If one guy says take these herbs and 47 other people say get the surgery, you go with the surgery. That's just, you have to weigh this. So for this woman to blame her demise on the doctor, and that's really what it is. What you have here is whenever someone suffers an amazing trauma or tragedy, they look to place the blame. What she wants to do is place it not on the universe or her body or whatever it is, but on the doctor that advised her. Now, normally, she would not have a lot of help doing this, except that in California especially, the tort laws, and this is where the second aspect of it all comes in, which the tort laws have been warped. And what we have now is a system which treats the plaintiffs as you find them, okay? And as opposed to as a normal person. Now let me explain what that means. This all comes out of a case where two little boys were sitting across from each other at a desk, and one boy kicked the other boy under the desk, as boys normally do. The second boy died. He died because it turns out he had a very rare condition of his bones and legs and whatever, and when he got bleeding or internal bleeding or something, and he died. Okay, so of course the boy who died, parents sued the boy who kicked him, and of course the boy who kicked him's parents said, "Look, they're boys. He kicked him under the freaking table. That's what you do." And the jury somehow, or the judge somehow said, "Well, no, we'll treat this as they should have known somehow, or the super sensitive person is out there, and so therefore you take the fall for it." And this has warped all of our tort laws for decades now, and that's the situation that we still contend with today. If somebody is super sensitive in a way, and they go down heavy and hard, people who are ancillary associated with that causation are still fully responsible for it under the law. So that is why there's been this big, huge explosion in tort law over the last few decades.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and so they need to get back to the point of what would have happened if the kid was just a normal kid. Nothing. He would have bruised his leg. You get $50 for the visit, for the sprain or something. That's all you get. But until that time, you have attorneys who will find these people, especially wrongful death cases or very serious illnesses, and they'll go after them. And here's the kicker. Now you wrap it back in with the lack of licensing situation with the medical doctor here. Somehow, this guy was convicted of this practicing without a license prior to the civil case, okay? And when that goes down, the civil case becomes incredibly easy, because all you have to do is point to a person who's harmed and say, this person is obviously harmed, and this person went to jail for it. And there's no way a jury's not going to put those two things together.
Right.
And so once you've got those two things, you've got blame already established in a criminal case, which is a higher standard.
Right. And
you have injury and pain and suffering and all that kind of stuff, $100 million, which is just absurd. Hopefully a higher court will throw it out. Or $90 million for pain and suffering. Look, I'm sorry. That is more pain than anybody has ever suffered.
No, that's right.
I mean, there is, you can think of the torture people or something, but no, she got sick and he didn't heal her. That's not his fault. Look, if he could have healed her, he would have healed her. But to blame that guy for her demise is ludicrous. Hopefully the courts will take that into account, but we're a long way from going back to where the plaintiffs are treated like average people, and we're also a long way from getting back to where people don't rely on a license to determine
Right.
the quality of their doctor. They instead get multiple opinions. I don't care what license my doctor has. I don't care what degrees he has or whatever. I'm going to find out what he's going to say, cross-reference it with all the information that I can gather about it,
Right.
and then make an educated decision. But that's not the universe we live in,
Well,
unfortunately.
she would have known he didn't have a license. I mean, you know, not that it would have made a difference, but
Yeah, exactly. She should have known that. I mean, look, obviously she did know that.
okay. Well, I don't. Of course, this is just the part of the story that I know about it, and there might have been some, but $100 million seems a little like you just mentioned, a little much. It's of course it reminds me a little bit of the Peanuts. You can't get them on airplanes anymore. Because
Right.
somebody might have I guess that they have to carry an EpiPen on airplanes now.
Oh, for sure.
I'm sure they do that. But I mean, you can't even serve, if there's a remote chance that a Snickers bar or whatever
Yeah.
the hell it is, you can't.
Well, peanuts are like the most allergic prone
Right.
reactive food that there is, and it's a huge. I mean, it's like a couple of percent or something.
Really? Do you die from that?
You can because it clogs up all your it makes you swell up and then you can't breathe, so you
Okay.
asphyxiate or whatever.
Okay, I didn't know. I thought maybe you could actually recover from it even after an hour or two.
My ex-wife was allergic to all nuts except for peanuts.
Ah?
And Mrs. Jimmy wanted to give her something made from almonds one time, and she said, "Well, I can't have that." Mrs. Jimmy said, "Well, just a little bit of it."
No, doesn't matter. One molecule, that's it. Yeah, that's for sure. I just thought that was interesting. Okay, next item. In the Deep South, this is kind of interesting. In the Deep South, residents of an upscale suburb fight to secede from their neighbors.
Yes, this is Stockbridge, Georgia.
Stockbridge
Right near-
in Georgia, which, by the way, that has not been decided yet either, has it? The
Which?
governor of Georgia,
No, that one.
Stacy, or
She's saying recount.
she's staying recount, and so that'll be interesting. And apparently, it's going to be a bitch to recount because some of those places are way out in the boons. Anyway, when Vicky Consiglio, so exits her subdivision next to Eagles Landing Country Club, leaving behind a neighborhood of neatly manufactured lawns, circular driveways, and golf fairways, she cannot help feeling a wave of disappointment. I see the Waffle Houses, the McDonald's, and the Walmart, and the dollar stores, and I'm thinking, is this all I've got? No farm fresh table, Starbucks or whatever. So it says, in a bid to attract more upscale amenities to this rapidly developing suburb about 20 miles southeast of Atlanta, Consiglio has come up with a controversial plan to form a new city. Now spoiler alert, they voted on it yesterday, and they lost.
So no new city.
No new city, right. It was interesting because the only people that were allowed to vote were the ones who were going to be in the new city. Mm-hmm. And the people of Stockbridge and everything that were going to be carved out of this. Well, it turns out that this upscale neighborhood contributes something like 60% of the revenue to Stockbridge. And so, needless to say, they would be, have to cut back slightly on.
What was the ratio of land?
It wasn't much. I don't know. Let me just see here. Thousands who lived, let's see, left behind in Stockbridge. Nope. This Stockbridge. The Stockbridge has a population of 29,000, so it's not that big.
The whole city is 29,000.
That's what it says here, and And
well, how big of a city did they want to form?
I don't know. Again, it doesn't. We've got a couple of cities here in Gainesville, believe it or not, that are smaller than that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's just look. This is obviously a fight over the tax base.
well, it was that too, but it was interesting because they were also talking about it being racist, and when they found out that actually it wasn't that racist at all, there was a pretty even distribution of.
Oh yeah, I did actually see that breakdown.
And so anyway, if Eagles managed to get away from Stockbridge, most affluent residential pockets, as well as maintain a commercial care corridor that brings in $5 million to the city's $9 million
Exactly.
revenue.
Look,
So,
it's a fight over
money.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's look. What we're going to do is, like all of us in this area, want to keep our money and build up our area, and you guys.
We'll have it will be. It's a new town called Eagles Landing, which is a gated town.
That's a walled town. A new walled town.
Hey, look, been there.
And
We have history.
Right.
We have history of
and
this.
Stockbridge is like a donut town
Yeah, right.
around it. You know, it's like the tire.
They just carve off one portion of it or something like
Well,
that.
they have like a lane to get out.
Right, yeah, no, seriously, they come up with a commercial lane.
A new freeway.
Well,
to get over
anyway,
Stockbridge.
I thought it was fascinating that the people who, the rich people voted, not the rich people, but the people in the new Eagles Landing voted against it, and they decisively. Okay, this is another thing that's kind of interesting to me. A legal fight, and you can maybe weigh in on this. A legal fight over a 2016 lower court ruling upholding Obama-era net neutrality regulations aimed at ensuring a free and open internet, which we've talked about before. Net neutrality is a scam. It has not anything to do with neutrality. It is anti-market. It's anti-free market and the whole deal. But anyway, rules that have been since repealed by President Donald Trump's administration. This guy Pai, whatever his name is, came to a formal end on Monday with the U.S. Supreme Court declining to take up the matter. So that let a lower court ruling stand, which he declined to rehear and potentially reverse, which is what what Trump wanted, what the lower court decided, and keep net neutrality in force. And of course, this guy says that's a good thing. So apparently, I'm not sure, but I don't know if that overrules Pai's idea of ash canning net neutrality or not. And I mean,
Well, we may see more movement on that because of the switch in the House too now.
Yeah, that's true. It will be kind of interesting.
I wonder what Dan thinks about that. Dan, net neutrality. Hey, Gene, what's going on?
Net neutrality is a scam because basically what it says is it does not allow you to pay for what you get. I mean, you do that. If you can go into a store and you can buy the high-priced caviar or the low-priced caviar or whatever you want to do.
This is everybody gets one caviar.
Everybody, this is what everybody gets one.
Great.
Yeah, and it's just great.
You'll love it.
Yeah, we've had quite the battle here to get our network up and running, which is now, by the way, it is doing well. So anyway, but it's disappointing because the fear is that the Comcasts and Warner Brothers or wherever other people of the world will throttle the little guy,
right?
The mammy, the woman who wants to get her email on Fridays and doesn't come in at blazing 300 megabits per second. But
this is just the government trying to put a leash on the multi-tentacled octopus that is the internet.
Right.
The infinite tentacle octopus that and they're thinking, oh, well, we'll just put a ring around its neck, and everything that comes in we'll get a little piece of.
Well, it's just what's interesting is this is a classic case of what governments do. When something gets big enough, they want to regulate it, and like for instance, there was until, I don't know, 1922 or something, there were hundreds of phone companies in the United States all over the place. Well, they finally had to all consolidate. And then they had the Rural Electrification Act. The government got into that. Tennessee Valley Authority got into all that stuff.
And television.
And television, right. Had to allocate all the channels. And I just got my ham radio license upgraded. I have certain channels that I'm allowed to get on.
Yeah.
That's it.
And can you imagine them outlawing the 7 words,
Yeah. George Carlin talked about
with
that.
the $100,000 fine for each word.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that when I was on the radio, the guy came in. We did something. I was on the radio down here on this little 100-watt station that had a reach of about a block and a half. And yet, when we did something a little off color,
blank a doodle doo.
Yeah, blank a doodle doo. That was funny. So anyway, I don't know what's going to happen with the net neutrality, but one of the things that I did was saying this, for those of us who've been around for just a little while and have seen the internet go from a 1200 baud dial-up modem, you've got mail, to what it is today.
It's all because of government.
Yeah, it's all. And
look, they didn't build that.
Yeah, that's right. They didn't build that. Oh my God. Well, it's interesting. Even our local Cox Cable here has finally responded, even though it's a virtual monopoly here. They responded. It took a while, a couple weeks, but we finally got their butts over here to clean things up so we can have some fun. Anyway, okay. Let's see here. We talked about the Trump administration wanted to add citizenship to the census, which it looks like they're probably going to do.
Yeah.
They will oversee. There was Will Ross, who oversees the Census Bureau, announced that he had decided to add the question. Civil rights groups and other critics.
That last week.
Yeah, we did that. Okay, fine. Here is what another thing is. The landmark youth. Here we are. This is the youth-led climate lawsuit.
Oh, right, yeah.
Juliana versus the United States overcame what could be the final two hurdles before trial when both the Supreme Court and the Ninth Circuit, Circus Court, as we call it, appeals refused to come to administration appeals on Friday to halt the case.
Right.
And what this is I guess it's a class action suit for the youth.
For the Utes.
For the Utes of America, because they're going to go into a pollution environment where the entire United States will be smog-ridden, like LA was 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where you can't see in front of you because of all the pollution, not to mention the polluted water and the polluted ground and everything, and noise and everything else. So, on behalf of the Utes, they have filed this, and they're going to...
Does it say what they're asking for specifically, or is it just like a general...
I think they just, what they're trying to do is to get the government to, like they did with the guy who was running not the FDA, but the Environmental
Protection Agency?
Yeah, whatever it is, because they, originally during Obama, they classified CO2 as a pollutant, and so they were going to regulate the CO2 in the atmosphere by statute or whatever. Not even by statute, by
administrative decree.
By administrative decree, right? Thou shalt have only a. So anyway,
I keep waiting for that one.
So anyway, the only two that voted against were Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch, which they wanted to stop the trial. But anyway. Now, the other thing that I'm curious, maybe you can tell me about this. The Trump administration has repeatedly asked both the Supreme Court and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to stop the trial via a writ of mandamus.
Mm-hmm.
What's the writ of mandamus?
It's just a special... there are... So, our legal system descends from this just incredible... this spider web of authorizations from 4 different sources, really. We had, the Crown, and then you had the Pope, and you had these various people who had created causes of action. And it was all swirled together and put in a blender and consolidated and made into our civil law. So now things are much, much, much more direct, but you still have these antiquated but useful sort of activities within the court, like writ of habeas corpus, which is it's what they call a collateral attack. You're not going after the case itself necessarily. You're saying, give me the person, give me the body, and you prove a different case that sort of interdicts the other case. Well, that's kind of the thing. What they're trying to do, they're trying to say, and I'll have to look at it specifically, but they're basically trying to shut the whole thing down with a sort of a collateral attack.
Okay, because this writ of mandamus is that a request for a lower court to do something or a higher court to? No, it's a request for to.
That's. I would have to.
I did look it up, but it didn't make any sense to me because I'm not an attorney. So. It seemed to be pretty simple, and it has not used very much.
Right.
Rare. It's rare.
Yeah. Whenever you see something that says writ, that's an older one.
Okay. Let's just see here. The next. I think this is my last item for today. Hope you've got something else. Yeah. Okay. The San Francisco's Proposition C, which will tax the city's biggest businesses to raise funds to combat homelessness.
Oh, San Francisco! I may have fixed the transport. I worked on it, and I think I can bring us into. I found a really nice park in San Francisco.
Not Skid Row.
Dolores Park. Oh, now why did you say that? Right when I was hitting the transporter, I made it to the park.
I know you did. I'm sitting here on Skid Row. That's it. Oh my God. So what they've done is the measure divided the tech industry, with Salesforce CEO Mark, whatever his name is, stepping up as the most vocal proponent, and the detractors, some more billionaires, Jack somebody and Michael somebody and Mark Pincus, speaking out against it. Proposition C will increase gross receipts taxes for companies with more than $50 million in annual revenue by an average of 0.5%, generating up to $300 million a year for new funds for shelters and mental health services. And I sit there and I'm thinking, this...
It generates the hell out of it.
Boy, well, it's just stunning to me that they...
Confiscating.
Look, they got this on the ballot. I don't know how, but apparently it was a billionaire versus billionaire. Mm-hmm. They got it on the ballot, and apparently it passed fairly handily. And so now these large places in Silicon Valley, there in San Francisco, that have $50 million or more. Now, if you have $49 million, no problem. You don't have to pay the gross receipts tax. The point being that this is an envy type thing where you're making all this money. By God, you can certainly help, take care of the homeless. What, of course, is what happens any place is as soon as you do that, if you think you're not going to get more homeless people, you're crazy.
You're buying them.
You're buying them, right. And all you're going to do is, so you're going to find a way to put up, I don't know, tent cities or maybe little housettes, the little miniature housettes the size of an...
Well, and they're always well cared for after...
Oh, yeah, you bet, right. Yeah, exactly. Because, of course, they have no money. I mean, the question is and we're having the big battle here. As a matter of fact, I'm missing the meeting today.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well...
They're getting away.
I had to do this instead. We're having a affordable housing meeting right over here, someplace that was kind of interesting, but it's all government or stuff. How great affordable housing needs to be here in Gainesville. Mm-hmm. But this is, of course, is $300 million from taxation, basically. And the question is, they had some rules in there to make sure that there's oversight and it won't be squandered. And I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute.
We hired a non-squanderer.
That's right. We hired an expert.
That's right. An expert in frugality.
That's right. It's a frugal person. And
the rest of us don't have to worry about that anymore.
well, when you realize that the median house in SF these days is 1.6 million. Mm-hmm. That's the median, half below and half above.
So they could house 50 people.
Yeah, right. No, it's just exactly right. We can put them up. We put them in a little stubby $500,000 house.
That's right, exactly.
little shackaroo there, for $500,000. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Well, look, these are well-meaning people they're trying to do. That's the thing people don't understand. I think on the right is that they think that somehow that they're just greedy for other people, if that's a thing. But the point is that they really do believe what you just said, which is that there's this extra money out there. It's just sitting there, like in somebody's mattress. They're not doing anything with it. It's not in a bank, which would be loaned out. It's just there, and it's doing nothing. And so they, by virtue of their virtue, can and should do something with that money.
Other people's money.
That's right. And it's a totally natural impulse, but we just have everybody in this country is on just the runaway train of it's just fine to do good things with other people's money.
Again, we had two tax increase proposals here locally. Mm-hmm. One was for the children.
That's right.
And the other was for the children.
Right.
And
because how can you argue with that?
How can you argue with that? One was a mill extra, I think, on your taxes or something like that, and the other was a sales tax increase of half a penny.
Right.
And of course, and as I said, I would gladly send them my half a penny, but that I'm not going to take that. So
yeah.
So now the sales tax here has gone up to 7%. And
Well, my thought just is continually, if these people, if everybody who has a government program in mind, ask yourself this question: could you talk enough of your friends into doing it without going to get the guys with the guns to help you out?
Or yeah, and of course, you personally would recoil in horror if they said, "Well, you go get a gun and force your neighbors to do it." Well, I wouldn't do such a thing. I would no way would I do. What? Are you kidding? I would not be aware.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You just hired somebody to go do that.
Yeah. But that's what their job is.
That's
You
right.
created jobs.
That's right. You created jobs. That's right. No, it's just interesting because they did have a lot of people here that were just, it was all about the people. I mean, all about the children.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you argue with that?
Right. Well, and that's exactly why it has great appeal. It just,
Well, of course, what's interesting is,
but I think what you pointed out, the interesting thing, which is they use the verb generated to describe the transfer of funds from the businesses and the people who actually generated it into the program.
right.
So it's really a confiscation.
Yeah.
And it may be for some good purpose, but
Well,
to
the
say
problem is that
generated is just
what they don't understand
false.
is the great law of unintended consequences.
Well, that's the other thing. Try to help somebody. Like, seriously, think about this. You think you want to help somebody, go outside right now, take your wallet, go downtown, find somebody you think you can help, and try to help them and see what happens. And what you'll find is, if you give a person a fish, they will sit there and come back to you and ask for these fish. They're not. If you try to teach them something, you're going to have to get their participation. They're going to have to want to do it. They're going to have to want to learn whatever it is and then take that further and employ themselves as that thing. It's just not that easy to just walk up and hand somebody stuff.
Well, it's interesting you should mention that because we have an ordinance here locally, and I think it's only in the city, I don't think it's in the county, but where you're not allowed to stand on a street corner and beg for money at a stoplight. They do it anyway.
Well, right.
It's all over the place. And so the question you have to ask yourself is,
Or an ATM, or go ahead.
when you drive past and it's the same person or people every single day, please help homeless.
Right. So the question is, have people just not given this person enough money yet, or are they in a perpetual state of downturn and degradation? And it could be anywhere in between. But as soon as you institutionalize the giving to this person, then it creates a tendency for them to exist versus the natural universe, which has pain involved if you don't take care of yourself. And it's like it's here to remind you.
Yeah, that's right.
In some ways. And so, like I said, it's not as easy as just giving stuff to people.
Well, one of the other, the moral, what do they call it? The moral problem is that once you create a dependency with somebody, if they're dependent, then they don't have the incentive to go out and do something.
Well, I mean, there's certainly that, but I mean, I think there's even more potential detriment.
Moral hazard.
Yeah. Let's say you won $100 million in the lottery, and you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to create a school. So you create a school, and you've got this thing, and here it is, and you give away education. It's a charity, and all right, I'm getting into the weeds real quick here, but
Yeah.
My point is just that. The giving part of the charity, there's something to that. The taking part of the money, or the getting of the money to give to the person, there's something to that as well. That is, it's a lot more fun to give something to somebody if it's yours and you made it and you have it and then you give it away. If you take it from somebody else first, that's what that's.
Well, I talked about this once before, and this kind of finish it off.
Yeah.
Was that we have the city, I believe it's the city, has $1 million or $2 million out of the $300 million budget or whatever it is that they give to charity every year. And what they do is they ask for proposals on your charity, if it's United Way or the Children of the Corn or whatever it is, to come up with a proposal on how you propose to spend the money, how it will enhance your charity. And typically, what happens is the proposals are the proposals to get started. They don't actually go to the intended recipient. What it is to set up the begging part of this thing.
Oh, right.
And so it's to get an office and a car and a telephone and hire a couple of people to, get on the phone and so forth. But that's what the money essentially is for.
Right.
And we will generate an extra $1 million if you'll give us, 50,000. Mm-hmm. And it's all too often the proposal is for 50 or 100,000 or even more. And in its infinite wisdom, the city usually cuts it down. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, they've given you a proposal that says they need to have $100,000 and you're going to give them 50 grand. What are you thinking?
They don't need a phone.
Yeah, that's right. You don't need a phone. So anyway, that's kind of what we're coming up against here. New budgets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting off Skid Row.
Yeah. All right. You got anything else?
I'm done.
Okay. Let's see. I had one thing real quick that's kind of a quick light note. I noticed that there was a municipality, I think it was in Canada, that started using goats as lawnmowers.
Really?
Yeah, because they had hills and things that they had to mow. And the goats just walk right up there and just eat everything, you know, and they go down and up and wherever. You don't have to have a specific mower or anything. Yeah. So, and apparently they do a real good job of cleaning up they eat everything. Right. And
different from sheep.
Yeah, and well, is that right? The sheep just eat.
Sheep don't eat everything.
Oh, okay. So the goats eat but then their body's digestive tract sterilizes all the seeds that go through it. So they leave like barren land and you can like plant your own stuff. And the poop is fertilizer in and of itself. But so it basically is like a clearing technique with very little effort, except you got to corral the goats every once in a while. Yeah. So
I just when you think about that, because one of the things that is so funny about goats, you get on YouTube and you watch goat videos. They're always on top of something.
Oh yeah, well you've seen the trees, right?
The tree. Yeah, the goats in trees, for God's sake. But I mean, the goats have this natural propensity. You see them riding on the back of a horse or a dog or anything like that.
They're fantastic balancers.
I mean, and there was a picture of a goat. Literally, these goats are in the mountains where it's almost a sheer cliff.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know. I've seen it. It's ridiculous. They're just standing there.
And they're just standing there, and they're walking across, and I'm thinking, what are you...
Until an eagle comes and knocks them off.
Yeah,
That's
right,
what they do.
Yeah, right. No, they tumble down, yeah.
All right. Well, hey, y'all. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
We'll be back on Sunday.
Yep.
Sunday at 4 o'clock. And we have a little more time to digest all of the news coming out and maybe have some better light notes.
What's wrong with my goat story?
It's a good one. Good one. Good goat story. I dovetailed onto that.
That's right. Hey, Carrie. Sorry we missed you at the last minute. But, hey, we got some things from Gene here. He's got comments on AT&T and stuff.
Okay.
Sorry, Gene. It's hard to pay attention at the same time. So, anyway, great to see you guys. And I guess we'll be back in a few days.
Sunday. We have a game Saturday.
Yes.
Last home game.